It has arrived. So as you may have guessed, this video is going to be my review of the Fulla 2 by Schiit Audio. Now, after the Fulla 2 was announced and released to Schiit's website, after looking at and seeing the feature set that this thing had at $100, I just knew that I had to pick it up. So aesthetics-wise, you can see there's this giant volume pot on top. It has the same like anodized or powder-coated kind of top plate that the smaller form factor units from Schiit have, and it's actually almost exactly half the size of, say, a Modi. Schiit did go in a slightly different direction with the feet on the Fulla 2. They are now integrated into the bottom of the unit. You can pull them out, they're like little rubber inserts, but they are fixed in there rather than the little sticker rubber feet that come with the Magni Modi. So starting at the front, the first thing that I think Schiit really did right with this DAC amp was including a 1/4-inch adapter. They're just so much more robust, and it's a lot easier to go from an 1/8 inch to a 1/4-inch adapter than it is the other way around. And also on the front, next to the 1/4-inch adapter is it's not an adapter. And also on the front, next to the 1/4-inch headphone jack, is an 1/8 inch line-in, which you can use to feed a signal from your phone or from a digital audio player or from another DAC if you wanted to. And as soon as you plug something into the line-in, it actually shuts off the DAC, so you only get a signal going from the line-in through the amp and out of the headphone jack. On the back of the Fulla 2 is where the feature set really gets interesting. So there are a couple different configurations that you can run this in. The first USB port is for power and data, and the second is for power alone. So there are a couple different options that you have for providing a signal to the DAC in the Fulla 2. One, you can use the main port here for the data and power, say if you want to go straight from your computer or your laptop. Second is if you happen to have an on-the-go cable and you want to feed the signal from your phone or say from a tablet or something else that you can use USB with, but you don't want the Fulla 2 drawing its power from your phone and thus draining the battery really quickly, you can actually feed power to the second USB port, and that you can do from any power source that has a micro USB cable at one end. So you could use a wall wart, you could use your phone charger, you could actually bring the signal straight from your computer, or if you had a portable battery pack, you could even do that. And part of this feature is that when you connect power to the second micro USB port here, it will actually tell your phone or whatever's plugged into the main data line here not to draw power. So like I mentioned before, it will not drain the device that's actually feeding the signal. Finally, the last two 1/8 inch sockets on the back are a line out, so just standard line out. It feeds a signal out all the time, and then a 1/8 inch pre-out, which is a variable line signal adjustable by the volume pot. Now, while the line out will transmit a signal at all times, the pre-out is actually disabled when something is plugged into the 1/4-inch headphone jack. Okay, so hopefully I just got all my settings right. The picture changed it all. It's snowing out. So now for the sound quality of the Fulla's DAC and amp. So in testing the DAC inside of the Fulla 2, since it has the same DAC chip as the Modi 2, I compared those two directly. So I compared them using the line in on the Fulla coming from the Modi 2, and then the line out on the Fulla going to the Jotunheim, as well as the Modi 2 going to the Jotunheim. So I compared each DAC on both the Fulla's amp and the Jotunheim. So even though they use the same DAC chip, I actually found the Fulla 2's DAC to not sound quite as good as the Modi 2. And I found that the Modi 2 just sounded a little bit more natural. There was something with the DAC inside the Fulla that just the sound was a little grainy, it just didn't sound quite right. The Modi 2 just sounded more natural. The decay in bass and say like guitar was just a lot better, and the sound was just smoother. Brass instruments just sounded brassier. They had that like full-bodied tone to them, whereas everything just sounded a slight bit gritty with the DAC inside of the Fulla 2, but that's kind of to be expected, as the Fulla 2 being a combined DAC amp unit costs the same as what a Modi 2 does. So there was kind of a question as to whether or not you should buy the Modi 2 if this thing exists with the same DAC chip, and now for me the answer is yes, the Modi 2 is better. So now for the amplifier inside of the Fulla 2. While I did find that the Fulla 2 will get more power-hungry headphones like my HD 650s or my LCD 2s loud enough, it definitely doesn't have quite enough power to fully drive those really power-hungry headphones. So for example, with the 650s, they do sound just a slight bit more anemic, a little bit thinner than they do with, say, the Jotunheim certainly, but the O2 even has a cleaner sound to it than the Fulla 2. And something that is kind of to be expected with an amp DAC unit in this price range, the Fulla 2 does kind of start to distort once you get past kind of halfway in the volume, especially once you get to 3/4, it's really noticeable, and then anything past that is really... So this can be a problem with, say, really quiet classical music and high impedance headphones like the HD 650s. That being said, the Fulla is a very good DAC amp for the price, especially considering its overall feature set. Personally, I will be holding on to this because it does a pretty good job with my LCD 2s, and I can just toss it right in the LCD 2 case and take it with me wherever I want to go, play it off my phone. It's really just a nice portable solution that you can take and use anywhere, and you can use with most headphones. There is one thing that I do just want to mention real quick, and I'm betting that it's an issue with my Fulla 2, and that is with the volume pot. When adjusting the volume pot, especially with more sensitive headphones, there's a scratching sound, which is actually interesting because I didn't notice it coming from the pre-out. I've only noticed it coming from the headphones. So, and the volume knob on the top is slightly off-centered. It's slightly leaning, so there's the gap on the side of it is smaller on one side than it is the other. So Schiit did kind of cut costs a little bit, and there might be some QC issues with some of these units. So I have tested it with everything from my Shure SE215s all the way up to my 650s and LCD 2s. So the noise floor on the Fulla 2 is plenty low to use it with IEMs. So the only issue comes in with, like many analog volume pots, there's at the very lowest volumes, there's a slight imbalance between the channels. So once you actually get that into balance with something as sensitive as IEMs, it's already fairly loud, and then you can only raise it up a little bit more until it's almost too loud to listen to. But that is a problem with pretty much all headphone amps that have a single gain level and put out that much power. So on the other side of the spectrum, while, like I said before, you can use this, it does get my HD 650s loud enough, it does get my LCD 2s loud enough. It's not exactly ideal, it doesn't quite power them well enough for them to really sound as good as they can. Certainly something like the Jotunheim puts a lot more power through them and they just sound that much better. Really where the Fulla 2 shines is with headphones like the K7XX, where they're not quite low impedance, but they're not really high impedance. So they do benefit slightly from an amp, but they don't need a ton of power. Something like the Fulla 2 is perfect for those. And like I mentioned before, I actually bought the Fulla 2 mostly just to check it out and review it, but I'm going to hold on to it because of how good of just a portable solution it is. Okay, well, I hope I hit all the bullet points. That pretty much does it for the review. I really appreciate you watching the video. If you've stuck around this far, I am going to be putting out another video just kind of demoing all of the features on the Fulla 2 itself, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you in the next one.